Alright guys, here too. Let's go.
I'm Caesar.
1046 CE, the Shang Dynasty falls and the Shou Dynasty takes over. The Shou Dynasty also introduces the idea of the mandate of heaven. This is a concept that if dynasty overthrows another dynasty, it is because they have the mandate of heaven. Seeing that now, obviously, they have the power. The mandate of heaven becomes a tradition in China for hundreds of years. The Shou Dynasty was not centralized. It was feudal and composed of multiple kingdoms. They have the loyalty to the Shous. The Shou Dynasty is divided into two time periods, the Eastern and Western, depending on the capital's location. The Shou was a philosophical golden age with Confucianism and Taoism. Later on, during the Warring States period, the already decentralized Shou Dynasty falls and true centralized government isn't seen until 221 BCE with the Qin.
Oh, the Qin Dynasty was the first wait, hey guys, Marcos here. My bad. The Qin Dynasty was the first unified, multinational, and centralized state in the Chinese history. It lasted from 221 BC to 207 BC. Seeing it only lasted 15 years, and the only influential thing about it was its centralized government. It only deserves like 30 seconds. Originally, I put like 3 minutes here. I'm cutting it out. I'll see you.
Hey guys, Marcos here. Short on time. The Han Dynasty was the second imperial dynasty of China, coming right after the Qin Dynasty during 206 BCE. The Han Dynasty lasted 4 generations, over 400 years. The Han Empire was divided into areas directly controlled by the central government, using an innovation inherited from the Qin known as commanderies. The Han Dynasty is known simply by its greatness, as they saw huge economic boosts and even advancements such as paper making and the use of negative numbers in mathematics. The Han was so rich that merchants were rich due to amazing trade abilities. During this time of Han rule, the territories were expanded and Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism had developed. The Han was a great dynasty with their great use of the coin and incredible lasting period. It came to an end formally in 2020 after Cao Cao's efforts to reunite the dynasty were done after losing the Battle of Red Cliffs in 2008. Hey guys, Marcos here. The Mauryan Empire was the first great and notable empire of ancient India, founded by the Mauryan Empire spread culture throughout most of India. It improved the economic development of the exterior regions as these were put into society. In accomplishing this, the Mauryan Empire expanded the horizons of ancient India civilization and so made it a more powerful force in world history. It also saw the most incredible spread of Buddhism, especially through Ashoka, who highly promoted it. The empire saw the amazing peace on its people during the Ashoka rule, and the government promoted great trade and agriculture. With the trade routes being more secure than any other time in Indian history, Ashoka was so great that after her death, no other ruler could fill his shoes, and so the freaking empire fell! Hinduism flourished in the Gupta Empire. The Gupta came over 500 years after the Mauryan Empire and is considered by historians as the golden age of India. The Gupta dynasty began through marriage, and later on the family conquered almost all of India, once again unifying the nation. The Gupta Empire saw great developments in science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, astronomy, religion, and philosophy. The Gupta rulers called themselves the King of Kings, but did not claim to be of divine origin, and ruled truly with relatively good benevolence. The Gupta truly pushed the Indians to be the great nation. Later on, it fell due to internal disputes and external disputes that weakened the national treasury. Long prosper!
Action.
Hey guys, Marcos here. The Sasanian was a Persian dynasty that ruled much of Iran from the 3rd to 7th century CE. Prior to the Sasanians, the Parthians ruled for 500 years, and even before that, both Persians and Parthians are Iranians, being that they were very closely related and their language was almost the same. The difference is that while the Persians had settled in the southwest of the empire, the Parthians remained in the northeast. Thus, the Persians were more influenced by Mesopotamian civilizations in their proximity, while the Persians were surrounded by Iranian peoples in the north and east of Iran, who were less influenced by Mesopotamia and had retained their feudal system to a larger degree. Hey guys, Marcos here. The Phoenicians were very much like the Greek. They didn't have a centralized capital and were made out of many city-states and no real established government. The Phoenicians were known for their great trading and even their most famous capital of Carthage, which did good while the Phoenicians were conquered by the Persians, later on the Greeks. After they were conquered, a lot of their culture and what made Phoenicians were lost, and ironically, they lost their alphabet. The only thing that survived was their alphabet through the freaking empires that conquered them, man. They were polytheistic. Greece was composed of different cities such as Athens, which was the first democracy, in Sparta. Greece was truly one of the most influential places to ever exist, with their art, place, languages, and different styles of government. Athens being the birthplace to Socrates and Plato, it is no surprise of its influence. Philip of Macedon conquered Greece after the Peloponnesian War had weakened both Sparta and Athens. Later on was Rome conquered and what remained of Macedon. But of course, it was no question the incredible influence Greece had on civilization for generations to come. I'd also like to mention Greece believed in multiple gods, hence Greek gods such as Zeus and Poseidon. Guys, Marcos here. Alexander the Great, Alexander of Macedon, an amazing conqueror whose teacher was Aristotle himself, came to power after his father's assassination. King Philip, the powerful ruler, went on to conquer Persia, Egypt, Syria, Mesopotamia, Bactria, and the Punjab. Of course, he also founded the city of Alexandria. Alexander's great conquest shaped the society and leadership all throughout his conquered lands. Even so, after the death of Alexander, his influence remained, as the culture he spread along with his soldiers continued to be quite relevant. The military strategist spent his 13-year reign working to unite East and West through military force and great cultural exchange. The man didn't lose a single battle for 15 years. That's incredible. All that needs to be said, to be honest. Just as the camera went down, the Roman Republic went down. Roman Republic, ladies and gentlemen, SPQR, the Senate and people of Rome. The Roman Republic was composed of two annually elected consuls that could veto each other. They had executive power in the Roman state, and of course, the Senate, which handled the big stuff and delegated down the chain. The Republic itself lasted hundreds of years, with many slave revolts and plebeian protests for rights, laws, etc., 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 etc. The system had a lot of balance. The Republic could be described to have a monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy all in one. And Polybius would agree with me. He's dead now, but Googleable. The Roman Republic had two classes, the patrician and the plebeians. If you weren't a patrician, you were a plebeian, and if you were a plebeian, you wished to be a patrician. See, the plebeians were most of the population and poor, and the patricians were the exact opposite, and really ruled the Republic. Now moving on from the system, later on, Julius Caesar, who was a military mastermind, conquered the Gauls. They got really wrecked. He became quite loved by the people. Actually, very, very loved by the people. Later on, he had to return back to Rome, where the Senate really was not a fan of him because they got scared of his power. They asked him to return, get rid of his general power. He would be sent to jail. So Caesar got his military and went back to Rome, took over the city, and became the ruler, essentially later on becoming the dictator. A lot of people hated Julius Caesar later on. The poor didn't. A lot of the higher class in Rome did, because Julius Caesar was so much about the people. They conspired against him. A lot of the people in the Senate murdered Caesar, ruthlessly murdered Caesar.
Caesar? Caesar?
What peasant?
Is that over there? You see it?
14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The fall of the Roman Republic with the death of Julius Caesar himself. Hey guys, Marcos here. After the fall of the Roman Republic with the death of Caesar, the person leading the transition from a republic to the Roman Empire was Augustus, original name being Octavius, whom was also the first Roman emperor. At the beginning of the Roman Empire under Augustus, there came a great time in Rome known as the Pax Romana, meaning Roman peace. There was relative peace throughout Rome. It was the largest it had ever been before, and the population reached a great 70 million people, and trade along the Mediterranean flourished. Pax Romana lasted around 200 years. Under the rule of Augustus, it was very clear how the government would work in Rome. As the emperor, he had supreme power and could single-handedly approve or disapprove any Senate decree. Popular assemblies were still occurring, and elections as well, but Augustus and his powerful allies would ensure that the elected would agree with the emperor. All this didn't matter too much in Rome, though, as Augustus was an amazing leader with whom began Pax Romana. As he once famously said, "I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble." Unfortunately, not all can stay good forever, as we see Rome making their first mistake with allowing Germanic barbarians into the Roman military. None of these men actually had any type of powerful love for what is Rome, and would mostly stay loyal to their general. This was a disaster, as you could now see multiple generals claiming to be the new emperor of Rome. Eventually, to cut it short, many Germanic tribes attacked and raided Rome until finally 476 CE. Romulus was the last emperor, replaced by the new Germanic leader, Odoacer. I can't pronounce his name. This was the last breath of the Roman Empire, the which had dominated for over 1,000 years. I like to mention many argue that the fall of Rome wasn't until the fall of the Byzantine Dakalaka Empire, which lasted another 1,000 years. Thank you! Hey guys, Marcos here. While hunters and gatherers had a presence in Central America stretching back thousands of years, It was what archaeologists call the pre-classic period that permanent village life really took off, leading to the creation of early Maya cities. Really effective farming in the sense that densely inhabited villages were to be found throughout the Maya area was an innovation of the pre-classic period, wrote Yale University professor Michael Coe in his book, The Maya. The Maya civilization was truly amazing at its time, and none could compare at the time in the Americas, few in Europe. Large populations that flourished well, great trading and good economy were all common. In terms of leadership, ultimately the power of kings depended on their ability to control resources. Maya rulers managed the production and distribution of status goods used to enhance their prestige and power. They also controlled some critical commodities that included critical everyday resources each family needed, like salt. Over time, Maya rulers managed ever larger portions of the economy. Car in the background. The Maya rulers did not rule alone, but were served by attendants and advisors. Maya laborers were subject to a labor tax to build palaces, temples, and public works. A ruler successful in war could control more laborers and exact tribute on defeated enemies. Further increasing their economic might, the Mayans were capable of very harsh military expeditions, usually for people to sacrifice. Land expansions, control of resources and trade routes. The soldiers were very deadly, perhaps not as deadly as the Mongols, but nevertheless. Melee weapons were most common and were indeed very brutal. At the very end, as very common with these great civilizations, the collapse had come. One by one, the classic cities in the southern lowlands were abandoned, and by AD 900, Maya civilization in that region had collapsed. The reason for this mysterious decline is unknown, but it is good to mention. Populations exceeding the carrying capacity of the land, deforestation leading to soil erosion, decreasing soil fertility, sustained drought, malnutrition and disease, decreased trust in Mayan rulers, growing hostility among city-states as resources became scarce, and endemic warfare. Go to run to the Mayan civilization.
Yo, Marcos.
Yeah? Oh, hey guys. Marcos here. Moche society, known as Mochica, was located along the northern coast of ancient Peru and agriculturally based, with a significant level of investment in construction of a network of irrigation canals for the diversion of river waters to supply their crops. Very common with these type of societies, human sacrifices played a major role in the religious beliefs, as bodies of men being excarnated. For those who don't know, this is the act of removing all the skin and organs of the body. This was probably done for temple displays. The Mochi were probably the most accomplished artists and metalworkers of any Andean civilization, us now having found hundreds and hundreds of amazing works from their religion and time. Region and time. The capital, known simply as Mochi, and giving its name to the civilization which founded it, lies at the foot of the Cerro Blanco mountain. Besides urban housing, plazas, storehouses, and workshop buildings, it also has impressive monuments, which include two massive adobe structures in their original state, display typical traits of Mochi architecture: multiple levels, access ramps, and slanted roofing. So indeed, it cannot be said that this was a weak civilization. It had outstanding traits that truly signify rulers putting the people to organized labor. Now, speaking of I need water, bro. Now, speaking of rulers, many believe that the Mochi were not politically organized as a monolithic empire or state. Rather, they were likely a group of autonomous polities that shared a common elite culture, as seen in the rich iconography and monumental architecture that survives today. For those who don't know, the definition of iconography is the visual images and symbols used in a work of art, or the study of interpretation of these. Otherwise, a collection of illustrations or portraits. Now, back to the start part of town, my friends. Collapse. Once again, it is mostly based on theories that cannot be exactly proven or confirmed, but most stem around the idea that it was caused by several environmental factors, such as super high rains from El Nino that could have led to a collapse in even their belief, which promised that through sacrifice there would be good climate prosperity. Regardless, they are no longer here, and to our fellow skin cutters, may you long rest in peace. Hey guys, Marcos here! Buddhism is a religion that was founded by Siddhartha, the Buddha, more than 2,500 years ago in India. With about 470 million followers, scholars consider Buddhism one of the major world religions. The religion has historically been most prominent in East and Southeast Asia. Very important because now you could get rid of the caste system many were not fans of in Hinduism. This was very revolutionary. Confucianism, which was following the teaching of Confucius during the year 499 BCE, was very influential to society in the way that people behaved. It wasn't a religion, it was an ideology. And the ideology that shaped the way many people think for hundreds of years. Things focused, for example, on mercy, social order, fulfillment of responsibility. Taoism became a complete philosophy of life, reaching into religion, social action, and individual health and physical well-being. Taoism of this period integrated the three teachings of China: Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. It came to be greatly influential and a good middle ground for the followers. Christianity, founded by the followers of Jesus, one of the most influential religions of all time. Christianity has a great effect on politics and government for many nations and how people behave and conduct themselves. Christianity is not all by any means the oldest religion, but throughout the time it has become the most practiced with over 2 billion followers. Classical trade routes included the Eurasian Silk Roads, Trans-Saharan, Indian Ocean, and the Mediterranean Sea. Silk roads began because nomads and settled people needed resources from each other. Nomads needed grains, alcohol, and silk, while settled people desperately needed strong horses for battle. Eventually evolved into a complex chain of pathways that would connect every single classical civilization. Indian trade routes. During the classical period, these routes were important, especially for the Gupta dynasty. Paper, cotton, textiles, and dye were important commodities that were traded in this maritime network. Indian trade routes depended on the monsoon seasons, where for 6 months merchants depended on predictable wind patterns that enabled ship travel. Trans-Saharan trade routes. The sub-Saharan region mostly consists of desert with minimum to no water. Therefore, it was difficult to travel between this region. But thanks to the domestication of the camel, trade became possible. Soon, Berber-speaking people were able to cross the sub-Saharan, initiating what is known as the sub-Saharan trade routes. This would lead to the trade of gold, slaves, salt, and ivory. The Mediterranean sea lanes facilitated the transportation of heavy, bulky items such as wine, olive, and grains. Other items included timber, marble, silver, and spices. In its early stages, it was used by Phoenician merchants and Greeks. Both Phoenicians and Greeks used these sea lanes to obtain resources that their city-states did not have.
Two major factors that contribute towards the innovations and new technologies during the classical era include an increase in human population and an increase in trade. The increase in human population in the many civilizations led to a high demand in crop production. Things such as yokes, saddles, and stirrups for domesticated animals were created that enabled farmers to plant their crops at a much higher rate. Also, irrigation systems were created during this time that enabled farmers to water their plants with much more sufficiency. In terms of maritime networks, things such as the dough ships were created that enabled merchants to travel long distances without having to worry to drown. Architecture during the classical era varied by the region. An example of a Western work of architecture would be the Parthenon, which was created by the Athens in 438 BCE.